Welcome to All Lacrosse Live on our special edition on Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. I'm Gary Groob in Toronto. With me, I've got Shawn Slaght up very early in Moose Jaw. How are you, Shawn?
Doing pretty good, Gary. Taking myself off some
Time
snow, but I'm
change.
doing all right.
It snowed in too, but he's got nothing to do, right? A time change and an early start for the show.
We're the only ones who don't turn our clocks, and it screws everyone else
That's right
up.
too. That's right.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan doesn't believe in time changes. Just the rest of the world here. So they're good. They're good. I like their theory though. None of them get confuddled with this. And I've got Muffler Mike in Connecticut who's still trying to figure out the time change, just like
it screwed me up. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, me trying to figure out last night and setting clocks and trying to get my wife to work at 6:00 this morning. It was like, yeah, perfect. But anyways, it's been a busy week as always, and we're in the middle of it. There's still a couple of arena lacrosse league games going to go on this afternoon. There's one NLL game with Rochester facing Georgia this afternoon, so our pick'ems aren't quite complete. So far, I've done okay. Thank God, after last week's thrubbing. But guys, what do you think? This week's been a pretty decent week lacrosse-wise. We've had some pretty amazing things we've seen. Mike?
Yeah. I mean, great games. Definitely a lot of teams that could have taken a step forward that didn't, as we'll get to shortly. But but the playoff picture it's tightening up more, I think, than we expected.
In both divisions, you're right.
Yeah. So, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about a clear divide between the playoff teams and the non-playoff teams, and that's gotten a little bit blurred over the last few weeks. So, and I expect it probably will more in the remaining 7 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Shawn, what do you think about this week?
Yeah, I completely agree with Mike. Even that crossover spot now is not a guarantee. I mean, the East has kind of crept up in that fifth place spot that could cross over to the West. So nothing's even guaranteeing the West that if you're in fourth, you're going to make it in. That and a lot of those teams.
A couple of weeks ago, we were pretty sure about that, weren't we?
Yeah. I think it probably has to do with kind of how Philly's kind of picked things up lately. And we're just talking about that first overall pick. A lot of those teams that were in that sweepstakes picked up wins this week, which makes things a little bit more starting to look cut and dry, especially depending on what happens this afternoon.
Yes, most definitely. Just before we go any further, I'm going to do a couple of things for the network, and then we'll move on to our news. But remember that episodes are streamed live across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, and you can catch all the action on EOPsports.com. Remember, excuse me, to hit the subscribe, follow, and like buttons, and always share with your family and friends. Please enjoy our affiliates, such as the Broad Street Bully Podcast, Philly Press Box Radio, Edge of Philly Sports Live, Birds IQ, Patterson Avenue Fanatics, Talking Philly Sports with Matty B, Devereaux Sports, The Painted Lions, and Party on Broad. And if you missed a show, no worries. You can grab all the podcasts on all major podcasting companies, which include iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, and so much more. You can also catch it on EOP Sports YouTube page, and if you're looking for ours specifically at the All Across All the Time YouTube page. Remember, you can stay up to date on all sports by visiting EOPsports.com with great articles from our huge staff of contributors, and also while you're there, subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Remember, with St. Patrick's Day coming up on Friday, Dolan's is your place to go for all kinds of St. Patrick's fun. You got Brent Porsche from 93.3 of WMMR, also featuring live bands, food vendors, drink specials. Delco's greatest Irish dive is Dolan's, and at 24 East Sellers Avenue, Ridley Park. You want to head over there. Now, you need tickets to the big games. Sherry's Ticket Town is where you want to go. Easy to use and no hidden fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Pay less and play more with sherrystickets.com. Save even more by using the exclusive promo code EOP10. Don't pay hidden fees and save 10%. Why use any other ticket reseller and get those hard-to-come-by tickets to the big game? If you need a more personal touch, give them a call. 610-494-5050, or visit their office at 1382 Nomuns Creek Road, Suite 1, Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania. Sherry'sTickets.com also has great theater and concert tickets that are hard to get your hands on. Remember, don't overpay with the rest. Save with the best. Sherry'sTickets.com, and save that extra 10% by using the promo code EOP10. Also, remember PhillySportsTrips.com. They have a number of trips on the works. There's more actually than what we're just showing you here. So go on to their website and have a look. A few to highlight is the ultimate trip to Yankee Stadium, April 3rd in the Bronx. The NFL draft in Kansas City, April 27th through 30th. Philadelphia Union game in Colorado, May 13th through 16th, with also ties into the Phillies trip out to Denver, May 13th through 16th. And if you want to go on a bigger excursion, London and Leeds with the Philadelphia Union, May 24th to 30th. Give those guys a look and get in touch with them for what you need. And if you wind up in a little bit of trouble or have any other claims that you need to get taken care of, David R. Cherry, Esquire, and the Cherry firm will be happy to help you. Workers' comp claims, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, criminal law. The guys over at the Cherry firm will be more than happy to give you a hand. 610-565-0300 in the Philadelphia area. Give them a call. Tell them that the EOP guys sent you over. Okay, guys, a bit of news this week. Not a lot, actually. A lot less than recently. One more time, of course, coming up quickly is the second annual Bats Invitational, Battle of the 90, Rochester Bats against Bank City. That's April 8th, 1:30 face-off at the Blue Cross Arena. Doors open at 1. It's free, but you need a ticket to the Rochester Nighthawks game against Albany that night, which should be a party. Should be a lot of fun. That building is rocking again. That team is exciting. So you're going to want to get over there, and for inexpensive tickets, take a look at the Rochester Bats website. Mike Cooper will hook you up. The USA Lacrosse made an announcement, according to Laxmag. Reggie Thorpe and Ginny Capiccioni will coach the USA teams, men's and women's, at the 2024 Lacrosse Box Championships. A few quick signings. PLL had Mac O'Keefe signed with the Archers through 2024. And we also had a signing of Dean Farrell. He wasn't out of work for very long. Panther City, as you remember, released him. He is now playing with Vancouver. I believe he was in the lineup last night. He is from Vancouver, so it isn't a long trek for him to get over to the arenas. So not bad. Not bad. Busy week. We had a few milestones. And of course they tie into this week's games. But the first one and the big one, of course, is Dane Dobby. 500 goals. He was stuck there last week, couldn't get that last one. So this week, of course, he got it. And for you aficionados, I happen to have the clip.
Div 3 championship at RIT with Ryan Barnable. Those two former teammates going back to back, and there's 500. Dane Dobie behind the back, and he joins an elite class of 7 in the NLL.
If you're going to score your 500th goal, why not do it in style? Dane Dobie fights off 3 defenders, gets an absolute great behind-the-back shot over Alex Bouquet's shoulder. Number 500, the 7th to ever do it in league history.
Short-handed, nonetheless.
Pretty amazing, eh? If you're going to do it, you might as well do it in style. That's one for the record books and one for the memory banks as well, because that was a hell of a goal. Sorry, Shawn. It was against Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be a core memory for Rush fans.
Yeah. It's good to hear that.
For the remainder of his career. Maybe they can get him back in the playoffs. So
Well, it's not like he wasn't hated when he was with Calgary, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm kidding.
So I imagine Travis is ecstatic about that particular goal.
I'm sure he is.
Travis Whelan and Dane Dobie, they're memorable. Some of those little quirks over at the penalty box, and Travis sits right beside it, and some of the little clips that I've seen.
I have a great picture from a couple of years ago of him and Dobie just arguing just from
Yeah, I think I have that as well. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. But yeah, that's gone back a number of years. So I'm just sure that Travis wants to send his best regards to.
Yeah, he'll send the soother to him.
He'll send something anyway.
Yeah.
But another one is of course Jeff Teat. We talk about him about every week. He had his 200th career point. That didn't take very long at all, did it? We're going to be talking about his 1,000th point really, really soon.
Yeah, I believe it's the fastest of any player, right?
Yeah,
200
it's
points.
a season and a half.
So,
Wouldn't surprise me.
yeah.
Season and a half. That's absurd.
Yeah.
I happen to, of course, we always have these Teat highlight goals because they just don't look like anybody else's highlights. And
it's a 7-2 game.
It just comes so easy, doesn't it? It just
to him, sure.
Right up. Anybody else? There's 12 guys in the way, and there's a post, there's some glass, hit somebody's helmet. That's
Div 3 championship.
Just wide open. But looks like last week's one with all the English that just kind of rolled itself around. It's amazing. By the way, guys, I'm modeling my Gavin Prout jersey that just came in there last week.
Nice.
A little retro for everybody. Be a little bit better, I guess, if Colorado would have won. But we can't have it. I buy 365. Oh, by the way, last week's Bet 365, I needed Toronto to win on the Monday. And, of course, they didn't. But I was smart enough to cash out on the Sunday.
There you go.
Nice.
Just had a feeling that it's like, you know what? I'm going to take the hit for about $40 or $50 and I'm going to get out of this thing. I'll put it on another ticket for the next night. And sure enough, 7 posts later, but, we'll talk about that also in a little bit. But, I imagine if you take the post they hit last night and the post they hit last week, you're going to probably have as many shots as Albany had in a game. Because they didn't have very many. Oh, Dave's with us. How are you, Dave?
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Happy Lacrosse Sunday is correct. Any day we're talking lacrosse is a good day. But so that's it for those. I just wanted to highlight that Buffalo they played on Friday night in a barn burner with Halifax. Once again, when we get into the game, we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But Halifax has got me scratching my head again because they easily could have won that game and lost in overtime. But Buffalo had their full array of lineup back because Kluche was back, Byrne was back. And do you think Byrne missed a step? Look at his goal.
To Byrne. Byrne being hampered on the play, reverses thruster, scores! Josh Byrne.
So fast, so quick, so explosive. It's a one-on-one matchup with Tyson Bell. And Josh Byrne gives him a real quick jab step, gets underneath, roll dodge. You see it here, kind of matched up. Oh, and just so fast. And underneath goes airborne, goes far pipe over the right shoulder of Warren Hill.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he missed a step, does it?
No, not at all.
Air Byrne has returned, and everybody in the East needs to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it wasn't already difficult enough with Buffalo sitting on top, dealing with Fraser out, Kluche out, for a bit Nanaco out, Byrne out, and they were still, 9-2. And now they're all back. And, of course, Matt Vince in net playing like he's 23. Maybe even better than when he was 23. Just amazing. Absolutely astounding how good this team is. And we talked about it at the beginning of the year that maybe they're getting a little long in the tooth. Guys are starting to get up there in age. There's not a whole lot of youth being put in there, but there is. And they came in when these guys were hurt. And guys like Brad McCulley, they didn't miss a step. So It's frightening over there. Chugger has done some amazing work to A, keep the bandits together, and B, next man up mentality, and C, guys from the practice squad and guys from their drafting are ready to step into the lineup and really look as though they didn't miss a beat, that they've been there all year. That's frightening.
The $1 million question is, can they do it in the playoffs?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we know the Buffalo's track record, right? Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. And they want to shake off the Buffalo Bill label.
Yeah, they always have that great regular season, but then playoffs just struggle.
Yeah, it's amazing. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the games. I want to jump over to just the ALL briefly because again, they've only completed half of their games so far this weekend. They had one of their makeup games happened. They had the Oswego Bears and the Peterborough Timbermen made up their snow games. So there's only one game to be made up still, and that's the Brampton Oshawa game, one of the games that really matter. So I'm assuming that'll probably be in the next week or so. But Oswego, another team that makes me scratch my head because they've been getting shellacked, and lately the Timbermen have been gelling very nicely. But the Bears came across with a 17-13 win out in Peterborough. James Whiteford with 5 goals and 6 assists for the Oswego Bears. Heron Snow with 4 goals and an assist also for Oswego. And Gowa Abrams in net, giving up 13 goals on a whole slew of shots. So, yeah, Gowa's fitting in very nicely over there. We had 2 games on Saturday. Paris went against Oshawa, in which I thought would be a bigger mismatch than it was. And Paris actually, after their win last week, they took Oshawa to task. They lost 14-11 in Oshawa, but man, they gave up. They put up a good fight all the way until the very end. It was as close as 12-10 with 7 minutes to go, and then Oshawa got 2 quick goals, putting this thing to bed. John St. John was the star for Oshawa, 4 goals, 4 assists. Alex Q for the Paris River Wolves with 3 goals, and a name that we're familiar with, Deacon Knott, in net for Oshawa to make sure that Oshawa stays in the hunt for first place over in the Arena Lacrosse League. The other big one was the Whitby Steelhawks, who had some trouble the last couple of weeks, and they had a big task to go against the Brampton Express. And Brampton squeaked out this game 16-15 with Mitchell Jeffrey scoring with just over a minute to go in the game for the game winner. In fact, Whitby once again had a lead with just under 3 minutes to go, and Brampton scored 3 quick goals to steal this game. Good teams find ways to win, hey guys?
Yeah.
They certainly do.
Eduardo's with us. Good morning, Eduardo.
Hey, good morning, Eduardo.
Where is he this week?
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, nice.
Excuse me, guys.
Yes, indeed, Dave. We will be getting to that soon, and it's a chance to really separate themselves and solidify their hold on that 4th place spot.
I picked them, and
we all did.
We all did, yeah.
I picked them on Bet365 too, and that's what cost me my ticket this week. I even had Toronto -3.5, and they came through for me. Though at one point in that game, it didn't look very good. We'll get into that too. Eduardo is telling us he's in home in Jacksonville. So if anybody's looking for Eduardo, if he owes you money, he's in Jacksonville. So anyways, to get back to the Arena Lacrosse League, they have 2 games coming up today. If you are in Hagersville or close to Hagersville, or are looking for a good afternoon of lacrosse, the 1 o'clock game has the Toronto Monarchs against the Oswego Bears, their second game of the weekend. That should be interesting, playing the top team in the league. And you have the Peterborough Timbermen playing their second game in the league of the week against the Six Nations Snipers, which should also be a very good game. So that's 4 o'clock. Well, guys, that brings us over to the NLL. And we can start off, I guess, with the Philly win against Toronto back last Monday.
Yeah, so
We're gonna call it postgate.
post game, right?
Toronto hit at least 7 posts in that game. Stack that also with a hot goaltender in Zach Higgins, and you have an 11-10 Philadelphia win. Now, did Toronto get a lot of shots off? Oh, yes, they did. They doubled Philadelphia 65-32 in shots. So how well did Zach Higgins play? Well, as they say in Georgia, he stood on his head. But not literally, because that would be strange. But he played fantastic. He was an absolute rock back there, making big save after big save. You know, Toronto's notorious for taking long outside shots, but there were shots from everywhere. Inside, outside, corners, back, behind the back, and he was up to the task most of the night. Right off the hop, though, Philadelphia got rolling. Toronto didn't have a sniff in that first quarter. It was all Higgins. But Matt Rambo scored just under 2 minutes into the game. And it seems as though when Philadelphia has a lead, they relax a little bit. They play a little bit easier. You know, they're not so tense, not gripping so hard, because they played a really strong first quarter. Blaze Reardon got a goal, and it was 2-0 by the end of the first quarter. Dan Craig got the rock on the board finally, about 16 and a half minutes into the game. But Mitch Jones with a beauty power play goal restored that 2-goal lead. And Toronto did what Toronto does. They scored a couple of quick goals and tied the game up. Latrell Harris got an unassisted transition goal. It was kind of questionable whether the thing went in or not, but it did. One review. And Challen Rogers off a Chris Weir pass tied the game up. But it didn't last very long. Ben McIntosh put Philadelphia back in lead. It went back and forth a little bit. Dan Craig got his second of the game, and we were tied at 4. Philadelphia comes out strong for the rest of the quarter. And Mitch Jones, Joe Resiteris, and Trevor Batiste. And we have a 7-4 Philadelphia lead at the half. And Toronto already hit 6 posts. Pretty fun stuff. So you knew right away that things were not working exactly the way the Rock were looking forward to it. Third quarter was a lot calmer, more of a defensive struggle. McIntosh made it a 4-goal lead before Corey Small. He always seems to be igniter, doesn't he? Before Corey Small got Toronto rolling again with a couple of minutes left to make it 8-5 going into the fourth. Patrick, how you doing? We talk Philadelphia lacrosse, and Patrick shows up. Good to see you. We're into the fourth, and Kyle Matisse scores in transition. It's 9-5. And then cue the Toronto comeback. As per the game on Saturday, a couple of days earlier against Rochester, Toronto rhymes off 4 goals, culminated with a Corey Small power play goal, 9-9, and the Wells Fargo group of 6,000 or so are silent because they've seen this movie before. But no, they haven't, because this Philadelphia juggernaut that of recent comes in with Blaze Reardon with a beauty goal. I believe that was a record of was it the most goals? So that for I'm not even sure what it was, but there was something I had read about it. But 10-9 Philadelphia. Ben McIntosh immediately after makes it 11-9. Schreiber gets a goal for Toronto to tighten it up with inside a minute. Toronto gets an opportunity, but again, Zach Higgins is up to the task, and Philadelphia waltzes out with an 11-10 nail-biting victory. Good on them. And that was Mike's prophecy from that week. 2 Philadelphia wins with a hell of a loss.
I did.
And
Yes.
Philadelphia sits in 4th place coming into this particular weekend in a playoff spot. Pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. It took a lot of work, and they did everything they had to do.
Yeah,
Mike?
yeah, and definitely. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, that didn't even remotely look like a possibility, even with the addition of Mitch Jones. But I mean, he's just been a flat out beast since joining the Wings. I don't know the point totals exactly, but obviously he had that 14-point night that was just out of this world. And he's just been on fire, and I really think that the other guys on offense have really just kind of it's lit a fire under them too.
Absolutely.
To
Oh,
see,
yeah.
Well, one of the things I think is that because Mitch Jones is out there, that they can't key on Joe Resetarits. So he's freer to do a lot of the setup work, which is what he's good at. And Ben McIntosh can get free as well. Rambo can get free because they're going to key on Mitch Jones. And he's such a good player that even when you're keying on him, he's still going to get his points. So that really sets the defense apart. And if you're taking a defense like a Toronto defense, which has been the class of the league for the last couple of years, and really shred them, that you can do basically what you want. Now, Rose is going to make his saves, of course, and keep it close. But that's the most disheveled I've seen that defense in coming on 2 years, really. Regular season play, anyways. So, they did something right. And the moves they made were good moves. And, take Katoni as well, to do the digging and all the other things. Everybody has a role. Just do your job, and things should work out well. We'll get to last night's game in a couple of games there, but overall, Philadelphia as a whole has turned a corner. They're a much better team. Moving into this week's stuff, we briefly talked about the Buffalo Halifax game on Friday night, but this game, I honestly thought that Halifax was going to pull this out. I really did. They got off to a good start. Only goal in the first. Great defensive struggle. Warren Hill looked good in net. Matt Vince always looks good in net. Randy Stotts got a power play goal about 12 minutes in, and that was the only scoring in the first quarter. Now, you would expect these two teams, with all the scoring punch that they've got, that this would be a 7-6, 7-5 kind of game after one. Just absolutely, the Rockets' red glare, so to speak. But no. Come the second, though, we had a little bit more scoring, a little bit more as per normal. Josh Byrne got his first goal in weeks, just coming back off the IR. Chris Kluche, just coming back off the IR, got his first goal on the power play. But Halifax, to their credit, came right back. Chris Boucher with a beauty goal. Just a howitzer. Josh Byrne again with another one. And Kluche. Seems to be a 1-2 tandem. And then, of course, Tyson Bell with one of his patented firing through the net kind of shots. And then, of course, an NLL first, Nick Kozovnikov.
Yep.
Duh. But he got his first NLL goal, which made it 5-3 at the half. Come into the second, Chris Kluche with his third of the night, which now is a 6-3 lead. Cue the Halifax comeback. Randy Stotts with his second. Chris Boucher with his second. Eric Fennell joins in with a power play goal. Ryan Benesh. Eric Fennell with another goal. And it is 8-6 Halifax going into the fourth. Chris Boucher scores, makes it 9-6. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be the one that Toronto needs because Halifax will score, and that'll be great. Good win. I would be wrong. What a shocker. Bob Buchanan gets a power play goal, which sets Buffalo up into the Ignite situation. Josh Byrne again, and Kyle Buchanan again, and we are tied. The last 4 minutes were absolutely death-defying. Things going back and forth, up and down, lots of opportunities. and Matt Vince and Warren Hill showing why they are two of the top goalies in this league, just keeping their teams in it. And into overtime, just shy of 2 minutes, Chris Kluche, clutch. And Buffalo walks away with this win. I often wonder if Philadelphia kept Chris Kluche, what would that lineup look like? Remember that Chris Kluche was also 60 pounds overweight.
Yeah, he didn't really do much when he was in Philadelphia. He almost wasn't used.
He wasn't used
like he
right.
wasn't used properly. Yeah,
he was plenty overweight at that time as well. The first thing that Buffalo did when they got him was put him on a regiment and got him back in shape. And almost immediately his scoring touch came back. So, thank Troy Cordingley for that, because I remember talking to Troy about it at the Rock store and one summer, and just like, yeah, that's the first thing we did. And we had guys with him to make sure that he'd stay with the workout plans, and it worked. And he's back and firing on all cylinders, obviously. But Buffalo comes away with the victory. They are now 10-2 and sitting on top of the East comfortably, a half game ahead of Toronto, who with their win are now 10-3. So see if that one comes back to bite them, that Philadelphia loss. Patrick. Too many penalties, exactly. For the team that's the least penalized in the league.
Yeah.
They took their fair share last night.
Yeah, pretty undisciplined. So, and that's probably what cost them.
Eduardo.
You're not the only one, Eduardo.
Yeah.
I don't know, Eduardo. You really want to go through all that right now at this time in this stage? Anyway, so Buffalo comes away with that win. We mosey on over to our second game of the evening, and Calgary and Colorado. Now, of course, I have my Colorado jersey on, and I really, really thought that after a bye week and a week to scout and having players back and having Dylan Ward healthy, that they would put up a bigger fight than they did. And once again, I would be wrong. Shawn?
Yeah, I mean,
Mike.
that was Mike's game, but
yeah. No worries. I'll be honest. I struggle with who to pick and the pick'ems for this one too. I thought maybe being back at home would help Colorado, but
you guys picked it correctly. It was me that picked it wrong.
We did. So Calgary ends up winning 16-10. But honestly, the the score really wasn't indicative of how lopsided it was. For Calgary, all about team. 7 players with 2 goals each, including a couple of transition guys. So, they pretty much took Colorado to the woodshed in the first half, building an 11-3 lead. They'd actually chased Dylan Ward before halftime. He ends up coming back in net for the second half, but Calgary led by as many as 10 goals in this game. It was just team effort all around. You got 2 goals from Shane Simpson, you got 2 goals from Mitch Wild, all in transition. You got 2 goals from Zach Currier in transition, and then the offense seems to be clicking on both sides. You've got Hayden Dixon had 2 goals, Josh Currier had 2 goals, and then on the left side, Jesse King and Dan Taylor each with a pair. So for Colorado, about your only bright spot was Zed Williams. He had a hat trick. Reese Dutch had a pair of goals. Dylan Kinnear, 2 goals, 2 assists, but Eli McLaughlin and Connor Robinson both held scoreless. They only could manage 3 assists each. So, and the win moves Calgary up to 8-4 now. So really, they're just I guess technically they're a game behind San Diego. San Diego's got a couple of games in hand, but they've got to play each other, I think, twice before the end of the year, or they have a rubber match against them.
Yeah, down the road a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. So that's going to be super important for Calgary to kind
I'd
of
like to
keep
find the
pace.
show, at the beginning of the year when all three of us were concerned about Calgary after losing Dixon. And what are they going to do? And all that's left is Jesse King. And, they lost his brother in the expansion. And what are we going to do? Here we are. And they're
Yeah.
fighting for first place.
And no face-off guy either.
Right.
So
But
Yeah.
they are the transition
Well,
team of the year.
Well, that's the thing. I figured if someone can figure out to stop their transition, but apparently no one's figured it out how to do it yet.
Toronto came
cut that
close. They
off.
did beat them, but even
Yeah.
that was a one-goal overtime affair because transition was
They're
killing
living-
Toronto in that
They
game.
pretty much live and die by the transition, but it's their transition game's so good, it's hard to stop it.
they
You know
do,
the
yeah.
game that I'm interested in is when Calgary and Rochester meet up again, if they do, because the goaltending is so similar. Both goalies are reaction goalies, great reflexes, and very big on transition, quick passes up the floor. It's almost like watching a carbon copy of Del Bianco, watching Hartley play, because exactly the same moves, doing the splits, popping right back up, throwing it up the floor, catching the other team with their pants down, and off they go into a transition goal. So it'd be interesting to watch these carbon copies go at one another and see who comes away victorious from it. Because, man, your neck will be sore from doing this all day long.
I don't disagree, Gary, because if you remember when Las Vegas beat Calgary, they fought fire with fire in that one. They
Right?
just ran them up and down the floor. If you have the horses to do it, why not?
Exactly. I want to jump to the Philadelphia game, just because this is a game that made me scratch my head more than any other game this weekend. Really. And Mike, this was your game? This was
Yeah. So Philly coming into New York for the second meeting this season. They only meet twice, so obviously they beat up on New York last week in more ways than one, winning 19-12 and having a few heavyweight tilts at the end. But they came into New York and they got a they got a little bit of a payback. The Riptide did, winning 13-10. And, Jeff Teat doing Jeff Teat things. He had 3 and 5.
amazing that you can do this week in, week out.
Yeah, and I believe right now, he leads the league in goals, assists, and points, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it's kind of funny. We were talking a couple of weeks ago about how Dane Smith was going to shatter his own record and kind of run away with, MVP honors again. And here's Jeff Teat, looking to set that record himself. So it definitely should be interesting down the stretch. But big night for the guy on my door here, Riley O'Connor.
Yeah.
He had a hat trick and 2 assists. And just the 2 of them, just again solidifying that left-hand side. And honestly, I think the 3 of them with Larson Sundown is just a great trio.
Right.
And then you have another sniper on that side and Dan Lomas who can definitely put the ball in the net. But
Rich List doesn't look so foolish, does he? With the moves.
No, not right now. Despite the record, he doesn't. The moves look like they're working. They're at the very least being competitive in most of their games. I think the one in Philly last week was maybe a bit of an anomaly, but they had pulled pretty close at one point, but then just Philly kind of pulled away. And I think. I think with what's kind of happened this week with all the games, they still have a chance. Really, they're only a couple games out of that 4th place position,
which is amazing. Also, just again, a couple weeks ago, we wouldn't have thought about that.
It's the season's flown by so fast. It's you want to think it's almost over, but then you look at some of the records and you realize that hey, they still have a third of their games left. to play.
Yep.
Or more.
Oh, here's something interesting too, and the three of us kind of scratched our head in a message to each other. Was that Orleman wasn't in net for New York? They had signed Dunkerley from the Arena Lacrosse League, and he was in net, and he played very well. I have a clip of his post-game interview, and let's just listen to him for a second.
Excited, man. Super excited. I've been practicing for this, getting ready for it for a long time. So when I got the call, I was just doing everything I've been doing just to stay ready. It was kind of helpful playing against Philadelphia last weekend. Got to watch some of their guys, got to watch how we were playing. Yeah, that definitely helped a lot. It's been awesome. The guys have been great ever since I got back here. Everybody's welcomed me with open arms, and it's just been good. It's a great experience. Everybody was on my back, cheering me on the whole time today during the game, and yeah, it's been great. Yeah, so we work together, a lot of stuff in practice, just little things here and there on the PK, 5-on-5, all that kind of stuff. Just little things because it was kind of my first time playing with them, actually in a game scenario. So, and yeah, their shooters were great. They had a couple of great guys. Again, spent a lot of time studying them over the last little bit. But yeah, all credit to them. They got a couple nice had a couple nice shots, got a couple nice goals. So,
You know, it's funny. There was a time when I would look at some of these interviews, and boy, I'd feel young, and look at these older guys. Does this guy even shave? My God, I feel old just watching.
It's young, though. He's getting younger, so
They're getting younger and younger. Yeah, man. Like
Yeah.
pretty soon, the under 21s are going to be under 18s soon. It's just amazing. But he had a great game. Kudos to him. This might be the fire that Orleman needs too, to just snap into it, because he's a better goalie than he's showed this year. And his biggest thing, and it was the same thing in junior, like I've said before, seeing him in Brampton, was he could get into his own head. And sometimes when things were going well, he could let his ego get the best of him too. So either way, I think this year has been a grounding experience for him. And maybe having somebody like Dunkerley there, who seems to be a very level-headed kid, another kind of Deacon Knott kind of kid, that might just be the one to kind of, calm him down a little bit, and the two can merrily go on their way and try and solve this New York problem that was plaguing them through a good chunk of this season so far.
It's interesting to note too, Cameron Dunkerley is now 2-0 as a starter. So remember, he got the start against Panther City in Saskatchewan and picked up the win as well. So
that's right too.
Yeah, if Steve can't pick it up, they might want to look towards Orleman, towards Dunkerley.
Now, the only thing that saves Orleman is, if you remember, Rich Lisk, when he was on my other show, had mentioned specifically when the moment that it was free agent signing time, he had gotten in contact at midnight or 12:01 with Orleman to say, are you interested in being our number one goalie? We want to build around you. So unless Lisk has given up plans on that one or abandoned it, the blueprint, Orleman is his guy. So
yeah, I can't think he has quite just yet. But again, they do have a third of their season left to play. They can still,
Yep.
if this ignites a big winning streak, they can still finish 500. So,
right.
So, and that might be enough to get fourth place in the East right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with Philly and Halifax, losing this weekend. So, their road is not going to be easy. They've got, they're hosting Albany. Then they have a home and home with Georgia, but then they're at Buffalo, at Halifax, and at Vancouver to finish the season. So it's kind of funny because we were talking about, that last game against Vancouver possibly being, the two of them to decide who's the number one pick is.
Mm-hmm.
And things have turned quite a bit.
Yeah.
I actually think on the next game that we're going to talk about, I have the team that is going to be going as the number one pick.
Probably. But just before you get there real quick,
yeah, sure.
with regard to Philly, Jones again stepping up, 4 goals, 5 assists. Joey Rez had 2 and 3. Benny Mack had a couple of goals, and we will need to check on this. Trevor Baptiste, couple of oddities. This is actually the second game this season that he was perfect on faceoffs. 27 of 27. Jay Thornbert was not in the lineup for New York, so that had a little something to do with it. But he's now had 2 perfect faceoff games this season. But this might be the first time ever that a team has gone perfect on faceoffs and lost the game.
Kind of puts a dent in our theory that
faceoffs are
ridiculous.
And you know, I feel like we keep seeing it every week. You know, Colorado dominated Calgary on faceoffs. I didn't mention it earlier. I think it was something like 21-7 or 21-8, and they lost. Halifax, I've lost count of how many games Jake Withers has just, you know, smoked every opponent at the X, and they've ended up losing the game anyway.
Well,
so,
if you want a case study, Toronto won 6 championships without ever having a faceoff guy. Erlin's the first faceoff guy they've had in the club's history that's been a faceoff guy. You know, they've had by committee throughout the years, but nothing of any sort of anywhere near over 50%. So it's about having the right strategy for afterwards. Otherwise, Philadelphia would have had 15 championships with Snyder, with Jeff Snyder. Or Colorado would have had more with Bob Snyder. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Like,
ahead,
I was going to agree. It's a bit of a finicky stat again, right? It's 2 things about it. If you win the faceoffs, 1, you have to do something with it, and B, there's definitely ways to strategize against it. Just bolster up your defense off the faceoff.
Yeah, even how you set up for the faceoff, because I know for a time there they would have Hostrauser take the faceoff. He wasn't even really going down to try and get it. He was just waiting for you to pick it up so he can hit you and get the cost turnover. So, it's all about strategy and knowing what you have and how to work around it. Because, again, even when you win all the faceoffs, not everything is going to be a straight down to the net. Oh, he scored, and let's go have another faceoff. A pretty boring goal, boring game after the 200th goal went in, right?
True.
So I don't think that would be one. All right, so let's move on here. We're into Hamilton for the Toronto game, and a nice crowd, almost 9,000 last night, and boisterous on Indigenous night. Great jerseys, man. You still got a couple more days to get on the Rock website and bid on the jerseys, the shorts, and the helmets. So, in Canadian funds, you Americans should clean up because they cost you about $4.
Should I should add Albany actually auctioned some more of their Indigenous night from the previous week, and I don't believe they've gotten through all the team members yet. So be on the lookout for possibly another auction in the future. So I'm honestly all the designs have just been phenomenal this year for all the theme nights, whether it's Indigenous or otherwise. Just kudos to the Indigenous artists, who've created the designs for those theme night jerseys, and kudos to the teams for any other theme night jerseys. They've just been top notch this year. There hasn't been a single design that I've just kind of gone, it's terrible, So
I say I love the blessing before the game and all the ceremony before the game as well. I also liked it because I had PVR'd the game since obviously I was at it. When I rewatched it, that the TSN had put the entire ceremony on. So
awesome.
That was kudos to the TSN for being smart enough to do something like that and not just let me hear the announcers talk up in the booth while all this is going on.
Yeah,
it's good to see stuff like that, and I won't get into too much, but I know something new that Saskatchewan is doing this year is every time a new team comes into their home stadium, they present the head coach with the star blanket. Derek Keenan and the head of the tribal council for Saskatoon present them a customized star blanket with the team colors.
Nice.
And it's just great to see stuff like that. Yeah.
So, Toronto had a couple of setbacks before the game. It's interesting though, because it leads me to what I'm about to say is, well, Shawn Rogers was out because of the Philadelphia game on Monday. He wasn't put on the list until yesterday morning, but with an upper body injury. Mitch Desnew is still out after a few weeks. So those are two big guys not to have in the lineup. But lo and behold, I'm sitting there and up a couple of rows in my section at one point in the game is Corbeil and Rogers side by side. Just taking it in with us.
Awesome.
That was a lot of fun. And anybody wanted a selfie, well, it didn't make a difference. He's more than happy to, put a smile on, away you go. It's an absolute great guy. The perfect captain for your team. Happy to do anything community-wise. Does clinics for the kids. Does all kinds of things. Lives here, even though he's a BC guy. Lives here with a couple other Rock guys. They have a house in Oakville. And he is constantly at the Rock facility. So it's a great thing. He's a terrific ambassador for the team and for the game. But that being said, Toronto gets off to a quick start, shorthanded. Josh Jubenville goes coast to coast and beats Jameson, and you're thinking, Jameson didn't look so sharp. Could be a long night. Well, he doesn't give up another goal the rest of the period. Keeley and LaFontaine score for Albany. LaFontaine, beautiful goal. The transition one, bang, just that fast, and it's in. 2-1 after one. Thompson, Hannah Thompson scores a minute into the second quarter, and it's 3-1 Albany. And everybody in, of course, First Ontario Center is going, huh? Is this like last week again? Because I heard a lot of dinging off posts again. I made mention a few weeks ago I was at their practice, and these guys were having fun seeing who could hit posts, right? And the sheer accuracy of watching Erlin, Dawick, Corey Small, a few of them, continually bing, 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 bing. Well, maybe they practice too much. They're just hitting posts now. But eventually the shots went in. You leave it to Stephen Keogh and get it all thing. And, I saw a lot of fist swipes from her phone up because he was on his game, man. His shot was just deadly and picking corners left, right, and center. So he got the Rock back in gear off a Schreiber pass. Schreiber himself scored the next one off a Marley Angus feed. Marley Angus, of course, was placed in the lineup out of the Arena Lacrosse League on the Toronto Rock practice squad to fill in for Shawn Rogers. And he did a great job. 3 assists on the game. Stephen Keogh with his second of the game. And we are now just down 4-3. Dan Craig on the power play. The Rock are up now 4-3. 5-3 for the Rock after the Dan Craig power play goal. Colton Watkinson goes coast to coast in transition with just 42 seconds left in the half and makes it 5-4 at the half. We got a game. But in the ratio, I would say it was 2-1 in shots. I think it was something like 30-15. It was exactly the same as the Philadelphia game. Close at the half, and the shots absolutely sideways. Comes the third quarter. Dan Craig makes it 6-4. Piatelli and Tanner Thompson score back-to-back, and we are 6-6. And once again, it's very quiet in the First Ontario Center because nobody expected this into the third quarter. It was supposed to be 20-4 at that point. But we've talked about the Toronto defense. We've talked about Nick Rose. Well, they just went, and that was the end of it. That was the last goal that Albany would score on this night. And cue the Rock. I wouldn't say comeback, but they were tied. Cue the Rock drubbing now. Stephen Keogh with his third of the night. Another howitzer. He run to the center of the floor and just woof, absolutely a laser right into the corner. Adam J in transition. He kept looking like he was going to pass. Good fake. Bang. In it went. We go into the fourth. Corey Small, who had been pretty silent throughout this game, finally got on the score sheet in typical Corey Small fashion. And then Phil Mazuka. Now, we all remember his goal last week, his first NLL goal, which he jumped around into the crowd for a while and pretty much started a parade and everything else. It was, you want to talk about the team loves this guy, absolutely loves this guy. His energy and his willingness to do anything, it's overflowing, and it just rubs off on everything. And of course, his parents are, I think, 2 rows up from me where we sit. And when he scored this goal, they were absolutely elated, as they were last week. But it was a lot of fun because it was a carbon copy of last week's goal. Latrell Harris sends him in. He had just gotten out of the penalty box because Corey Small caught a pass at the bench for illegal substitution. He was the in-home, so he did the 2 minutes. Comes out, Latrell Harris sends him in all alone, a fake and a shot to the top corner. And this time around, just a little extra dive with his shot. And we have another good goal, and it is 10-6 Toronto. Dan Craig has his hat-trick goal, 11-6. Stephen Keogh gets his 4th of the night with a couple of minutes left, 12-6. Now you're thinking, Doug Jamieson not doing so great. Doug Jamieson faced 64 shots in his game. He made 52 saves. I believe there was 28 shots for Albany. You're not going to win many games with 28. I'm pretty sure Toronto hit 28 posts in the last week.
Yeah.
So, Toronto was firing from everywhere, doing everything. A lot of outside shooting, which drives me nuts, as you all know. But they did get inside. But they're so accurate, though, that they get away with this thing. My big question and problem with this is when you start playing the teams like the Buffaloes, the teams like the San Diegos, who are going to be ready for this, are welcoming you to take shots from 40 or 50 feet out. Because, again, that just makes this become a bullseye. Because not everything's going for a corner. And if your shot's off just a bit, hence the Philadelphia game, then you're in trouble. You got to get inside. You got to get to the dirty areas. You got to do those digging things. And for a while, it looked like they were. They've gone back to this pretty much all outside shooting and picking up corners and high to low to highs, sidearm stuff. But, I just wonder that when push comes to shove, come to playoffs, is it going to be as effective? Guys, what do you think?
Yeah, it may not be. Certainly.
It leaves you open for
yeah.
Well, I mean, I was going to say to counter that, at least you'll have Rogers back in the lineup. He's a guy who can penetrate into the middle, and will is not afraid to do the crease dive if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But you have Stephen Keogh, who's usually a lot more inside in his career. He's very comfortable, going 20 feet out, 25 feet out with his shot too. Same thing with Corey Small. He doesn't sit top of the crease very much anymore. He's further out, kind of like Adam Jones used to do.
Yeah, the way I kind of look at it is, let's face it, we're probably looking at a Toronto Buffalo East final. Are you going to be able to beat Matt Vince by all these outside shots? I have a hard time seeing that.
Yeah, Garrett, I agree with you, except that you have one thing that Toronto doesn't have, and that's Thomas Hogarth, who is constantly at the top of the crease, picking up every rebound known to mankind, and a lot of his goals are off of those rebounds. So, do they need more? Yeah, I would think they did. Interesting to see what they do today against Georgia this afternoon. But, I get your point exactly. So, anyways, Toronto now is 10-3. Albany is sitting there still with 2 wins. I believe they're 2-9. Long road. But the Dyson sweepstakes are looking better for them, isn't it?
Oh, it is. Yeah. With a couple of wins, and possibly, if Georgia wins today, then they're going to be all alone as the basement of the league.
Yeah, well, damn near a shoe-in looking at their schedule too. Not an easy schedule.
Yeah.
No.
Out. All right, that brings us over to Saskatchewan, and Shawn had the pleasure of watching Dane Dobie's 500th career goal.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he got a standing O from the entire crowd.
I'm sure everyone got their baby soothers out. And...
That's just people getting up to go get beer.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Well, San Diego won 12-11, taking the season series obviously 2 against Saskatchewan. What turned out that looked like it was going to be kind of a bit of a blowout turned out to be a bit of a thriller in the end. Yeah, right off the first quarter, Trey Leclerc, Dobie with his 500th, another one from Leclerc and Stotts, and they're 4-0 right off the bat. Robert Church finally got the rush back on the board with 5 seconds left in the quarter. We're 5-1. Exchange goals in the second. We're 5-2 after the second quarter. Jesse Gamble scores.
There's a name you haven't heard in a while, yeah.
It's his first goal since May 6, 2017. Scored for San Diego to put them up by 4. Then Clark Walter had a big game for the Rush. He got his first goal, first of 5 on the night in the third quarter. Then again, another huge run by San Diego with 3 goals. So Keefe, Crowley, and Dixon were up 9-3. Church with another goal. So he's now had 3. Well, he ends up he scores the 5th goal in the 4th. So he had 4 of the 5 goals for the Rush through 4 quarters. Yeah, then you get Dobie and Walter again. Exchange goals in the 4th. Shumay makes it 12-6, and then the Rush decide they want to play some lacrosse. They go on a 5-goal run. They go on a 5-goal run in pretty much a 6-minute and 44-second span. Mike Messenger starts it off. 2 more from Clark Walter, wherever they found him from. Obviously, he was filling in because, again, they had no Marty Dinsdale. Then Dan Lintner makes it 12-10 with 48 seconds left. Clark, with 36 seconds left, makes it a 1-goal game. Then the dying seconds, Church actually had an open cage and missed the net. And that ended the game at 12-11.
This Walter character. Where did he come from at all?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been sitting on the practice squad, but I mean, we talked about him last summer when he had a pretty decent
he had a good
campaign
summer
with
in
Coquitlam.
WLA.
So
yeah. But I imagine if anybody knew of it, he'd be up there with Madronic a lot sooner.
Yeah, and as much as the Rush didn't have a great game, I mean, especially with having Dinsdale out, you need guys like Walter kind of stepping up to the plate. I know it's a lot of pressure for a rookie, but your young guys have to step up when you have a guy like Dinsdale out.
Now, Ryan Keenan, 6 assists. Shouldn't he be doing more of the scoring for this team?
That's, I think, where they fell a bit with the Rush. Like, yes, they had, I believe it was 60 shots on goal, but there's a lot of opportunities where they had time and space. And instead of shooting, they passed the ball.
Right.
And I think that's an issue, not just with guys like Mark Matthews, that's been brought up, but a lot of the guys are opting to pass versus just taking the shot. I know they mentioned on the broadcast, even Jimmy Coach Quinlan said, like, this isn't an all-star game, guys. Like, if you have an opportunity, take the shot. Don't wait for help or just pass it off to someone else to take that shot. Don't be afraid to do it yourself.
Right. But it is nice to see that Walter comes in and scores 5 goals to influx some youth into the lineup, because I really hadn't realized it till I was sitting there. I was talking with a couple of guys post game as we had the Rush game on in the bar, and one was the former president of Brampton, Ziggy Musial, and trying to put our fingers on what was wrong, because it was just before the run had started. And I'm looking at the lineup and go, Matt Beers, a little long in the tooth. Kyle Rubish coming to the end of his career. Mike Messenger, even him coming to a bit to the end of his career. Keenan, he's been around a while. Church has been around a while. Ryan Dilks. Lintner's been around, he's got a 10-year career in. Mark Matthews. It's starting to get old. It's not the young bucks anymore.
Right? But they look at guys like
the up-and-coming guys in 2015. Well, 2023, that's 8 years later, and these guys are still, full tilt boogie. They need some other life, kind of what Buffalo has been doing. Yes, you have.
I think the Rush have it. It just maybe didn't show in this game because they've got Bobby Kidd the third. They got Clark Walter, as we mentioned, Connor McClellan, Marshall Palace, Austin Madronic, Jake Boudreau, and Ryan Barnable are coming in their own. So is Jared Smith. I think the Rush have a good mix of that. It's just they can't 100%
Garland into that,
and Garland as well. Yeah, I just think that they rely a little bit too much on those veterans. Like I mentioned before, for the most part in that game, it was just Robert Church scoring.
Right. It's I just I like the mix. I just think, again, like you said, a little bit too much relying on the old guard and not letting the new guard run free to try and see what they can do. I think it's for this team to be successful on a steady basis, you need that production from the younger guys to get comfortable so that they can eventually take the spots, because these guys aren't going to be around for much longer.
Oh, I 100% agree, because you saw the games they have won. Like, who were the guys who really showed up? As the Madronics, the McClellans, the Palaces. I agree with you on that point for sure, that they just can't. They need those younger guys to step up a little bit more. I know it's tough to say for rookies, but coming into the league, but they just can't fully rely on just Mark Matthews, just the Robert Churches.
All right. That brings us to our last game of Saturday, and that was the Vancouver-Vegas game. One of us picked that game. I just, you know what? I just had
I picked that game too.
Did you? Sorry, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
My error.
Yeah.
My error. That's why we're both
catch
sitting,
up to you guys.
That's why we're
somehow.
still sitting at 4-2, the two of us. Shawn is at 3-3 right now. He had a little bit of a rougher one.
A bit of a rough week.
But and today I think we all have Rochester. So, but the interesting thing in this one, I had a gut feeling. One, with the Dean Farrell signing. Two, Aaron Bold showed me a lot last week, or last game he played, and just the way the team has been slowly gelling under Cordingley and Sanderson. It looks like what they've done is gotten rid of anybody who didn't want to buy into the system. That's the way it's coming across. Why would you get rid of Mitch Jones? Well, if he's not buying into the system, then no matter how good you are, it's not going to work for the team. Remember, John Craig said that before. Accordingly, it's about his vision. And he's going to do anything. It doesn't matter who he gets rid of. He's going to do anything to get that vision to be on the floor and to be reality. So it looks like that's finally taking hold. And Vancouver isn't nearly as bad as their record shows. They've had games where they have been. But this new incarnate of the Warriors is a lot different, again, than what we saw at the beginning of the year. And like I say, having Dean Farrell there is a steadied scoring touch that's going to help out, which is also a non-egoist, too. Very, very unselfish player who's going to get his share of goals, but he's also going to do a whole lot of digging and setting up. And, John, the game itself, it's
14-5 win over Vegas. And, it really seems like that trade with Mitch Jones and the signing of Bold has just been the turning point for this team. I was even just going to go through the score sheet here, because you look at it, like, again, Riley Lowen, 6 points, 2 goals, 4 assists. Keegan Ball, 2 goals, 6 assists. Ryan Martell, 5 goals, 3 assists. Guys are buying in again, as you mentioned. We're seeing the team that we kind of expected from Vancouver, that we thought would have improved. Yeah, you're right. Everyone's scratching their head, like, why would you get rid of Mitch Jones? That's maybe a guy you build around. But it seems to be that wake-up call that, hey, nobody's untouchable now.
Bingo.
You think you're the best player on the team? Accordingly, not afraid to say, you think you're the best player on the team. If you're not going to buy in, I'm not afraid to ship you off. And anyone else in this room who feels the same way, there's the door. Don't let it kick you on the way out.
Yeah, and I think when you look long term, when you look at that Farrell signing, I think when you look long term on the left side, it's not necessarily a bad strategy to make the left side your strength. I think they plan to have Charlon Beatties kind of be the number one guy on that side.
Yep.
Riley Lowen is a good compliment, but he's also, he's in that Saskatchewan vein, where he's, 10, 11-year veteran now, I think. So, how much longer will he be there? But Martel is probably only 5-6 years in the league, not even.
Right.
And he's another good compliment, and we're seeing him kind of break out, this season as far as, secondary scoring and, in this case, primary scoring. So, I think when you look at that and you think about, they traded they traded Mitch Jones, who's a 10-year, 11-year veteran. They have Logan Schuss, who's a similar age, but, could maybe be on the move just to make the unit younger, and then
Plus,
if you're able to keep those four together, even if Lowen decides to retire, in a couple of years, you still have a fairly young core. I mean, I know Charlon Beatties has a couple of years on those guys because he had a longer college career, but you could see Charlon Beatties, Ryan Martel, and Dean Farrell together for a good number of years in Vancouver.
That's not bad side, and I think
it's not. It really isn't.
The key word there is secondary scoring. Like you mentioned, Charles Beatties is your guy. We've kind of established that. Who's going to be your secondary guy? Because we've seen it in other paths where you got a primary guy, but you get nothing after that. There's Farrell. You know he can do that role.
Yep.
Right.
And I think we're seeing this year Martel can do that role too. So
yeah.
So I'm curious with another week or so towards the trade deadline. Is Vancouver finished? Are they going to wait now for the draft or the off season?
Well,
or do you think they can tinker some more?
Well, you might if they can string another couple wins together. They're not out of the question either in this playoff race. The way things are going,
there's not many people that are sellers now because everybody is still in the thick of it now, which is weird because a couple of weeks ago we wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's the only downside, if you will. Well, downside, if you will, to Schuss being injured. No way they trade him.
I doubt it too myself.
No
way they trade him, and I'm going to base that just on the fact that they specifically drafted him because he could play that year for them. That was the first year, right? Was that the first year 2 years ago? That was the first year that
There you go, Mike.
Okay. Mr. Inside Info. All right, Shefty, Rappaport, whatever, Adrian.
Well, why do you think he went to the West Coast now? Probably working for the Warriors, just haven't told us yet.
All across all the times. Right. Inside reporter Ryan McMichael with the scoop here.
Yeah, this group didn't draft him. He's right on that one.
That's true. That's a good counterpoint. I guess to finish my point, it was just that, he was one of those guys. He was in that first draft where you had a bunch of guys get drafted who teams knew were a year out because of the COVID window and the extra year of college eligibility. And he was done at that point. So, it would definitely be interesting. I mean, if he is going to move, what do you get for him? They've already got 2 first rounders coming up next year. So that would definitely be interesting to see.
Well, they could absolutely go for a complete remake then, hey? But me personally, I'd like to see him stay there because I want to see what Troy can build with him, as well as Bowering and a few of the other guys there to, bolster it up. But they're going to have to look for goaltending because Bold is in there now, but he's 37, right?
Yeah.
He's not going to be there.
And I would think you could, Schuss isn't as old, but that was a piece we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. The only hindrance with that being that he's injured and out for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I was going to say because he's injured, his stock goes way down.
Well, yeah, nobody's going to.
But I mean, at the same time, is he any different than any of these guys that are on protected player lists, like a Kyle Jackson? As far as value right now.
I guess it depends because if you're on a holdout or a list like that, it could just be a matter of where they're playing. Maybe if they find the right fit, they'll come off that list. But an injury is a completely different animal.
Yeah. And Eduardo, for your comment, whether Bold stays or not, again, my point is at 37, he's getting older. Not everybody is Matt Vince and can play into their 50s. At some point, he's going to want to do other things, and his body isn't going to be what it once was. Another year or two, probably he could. But you have to look that while he's there, it's not about him playing. It's about going back to the initial plan of him guiding and showing the ropes to the up-and-comers. So if there's something out there that they can use that first-round pick towards, finding that diamond in the rough goaltender, that's what I think they should be looking at. The other positions, they pretty much have addressed in the last few weeks with these trades. And what they haven't addressed, they have enough picks that there's enough players out there in the pool that they can find some good ones to work and complement what they have already. Just my 2 cents.
Let's remember too, with their first round picks, even if they don't get first overall, it's looking like they're probably going to still have a really high first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get a quality prospect out of that.
Yeah, who did they get that second pick from? Was it Panther City? That doesn't sound right.
No.
Rochester, maybe? It's got to be Philly. It's got to be Philly, Rochester, or Panther City because they're the ones without first-round draft picks.
Right.
So
yeah,
wouldn't be surprised it was Philly because they unloaded a whole bunch of things to try and get players, and that Mitch Jones trade.
Maybe it was the Jones trade.
Mitch Jones trade.
So figure that pick right now, the way it looks, could be somewhere in the middle of the first round.
Right.
Yeah.
So it could even be that, they have back-to-back or something.
Right.
So kind of somewhere in the bottom of the upper third, somewhere like a 5-6, something
Absolutely.
like that, which would be, I think it would make it more tempting maybe to possibly trade one.
Mm-hmm. Well, jumping ahead, we got the Rochester, Georgia game this afternoon, which again has playoff implications on both ends. As well as draft implications, depending on how that game goes. Remember, Georgia's coming off 2 wins, but they've both been against Albany. So, here's their test. Have they righted the ship? Have they gotten into a system that they're comfortable with? Rochester will be one hell of a test to see what they can do. Because remember, Rochester's defense is deceivingly good. We talk about their offense. We talk about their goaltending, but their defense is built a lot like Toronto's, and it's very, very stifling and frustrating for the offense to come in against them. So it'll be an interesting little trek there. Jumping into next week's games, we have Friday night. We have a couple of games with Saskatchewan against Calgary in Calgary, San Diego in Vancouver. Now there's another big test for Vancouver. That one would be an eye-opener. If that Vancouver team could upset the San Diego Seals, that would be one that we're talking about for quite a bit to come. Because that would have huge implications towards playoffs it would be huge implications to what Vancouver does, because that would put them right back in the thick of things. Hard to believe. So we have Georgia going into Philadelphia. That all depends on how they play today, on what kind of mindset they're going into Philly for the Saturday night game. Toronto is in Halifax, another good game. Interesting to see what Halifax team is there waiting for the Rock to arrive. And can the Rock get some offense generated before the fourth quarter? Because that seems to be their new MO, is kind of sit back and then score 12 goals in the fourth. They did it with Rochester scoring a 4 to come back and win, or 5. They almost did it with Philadelphia coming back in the fourth after doing a whole lot of not much on offense in the first 3. They did it again last night for 2.5 quarters of not a whole lot of offense, and then boom, wound up doing just about anything and everything they wanted to do. So it'd be very curious to see, again, because the last time Toronto destroyed Halifax. They destroyed them on the score sheet. They destroyed them on the field. They got under their skin and frustrated them to no end. So Halifax were taking stupid penalties all night long. So we'll see. We'll see if they use that same game plan and how Halifax is going to counteract that, being that much smarter now. Moving into Albany is going to go to New York. That should be an interesting game too. Because, with a couple of tinkers, Albany I don't think is as bad as their record indicates either. But they are lacking scoring punch. If you took away their transition game, I don't know if they had any goals last night. But their transition game is a pretty good one. I would put it to the upper part of the league when it comes to transition. Now, if they can generate any regular offense to go with that, now you have something. And Jameson, anybody who's worried about him, yeah, he might be on the way out because he's on the last year of a contract, but he's playing his lights off, man. He's absolutely playing fantastic for the amount of shots he has to see. We're all looking at the score sheet going, what's wrong with Jameson? He let in 12. He let in 14. He's facing 60-something shots on a norm. High 50s, low 60s. So there you go, right?
Yep.
You have Colorado going against Buffalo. Now, I would have been a little bit more enthused about that game if Colorado would have come up with a win this week. So we'll see. Ryan thinks that Jameson's on his way to be moved. It's possible. It's possible.
That one I could see, yeah.
Because they need a few things. And if he's in the last year's contract, he's going to walk. See you later.
Yep, and don't forget, Halifax tried to qualify him as an RFA a few years ago. It was
I remember
a whole mess.
That was a whole debacle, that thing.
Yeah.
So Vegas winds up in Panther City. That'll be another good game. Again, I wonder, after last night's drubbing in Vancouver, did we just see smoke and mirrors the last few weeks with Vegas? Or are we going to see that Vegas team that we saw over the last few weeks that goes into Panther City? Because remember, Panther City is no slouch. Top 3 in the West. They've been playing lights out. So
still a must-win for them, though. So just with the fact that they're playing one less division game than everyone else, along with Vegas, and they need the series wins.
Yeah, that's right too, Aaron. He's an RFA. That's right. So he can't just walk. But we'll see how that all plays out. I'm sure they want to get full value for him, though. And right now it would probably be about
first and a second and a decent player, probably.
Yeah. And we see what happens with RFAs too, with the Kyle Jackson situation where he may not walk, but he'll just sit.
That's it, exactly. So, and we have a Sunday game again next week in Rochester. It is Philadelphia coming into Rochester for a 3:00 game there at the Blue Cross Arena as the last game of the week. Interesting. Eduardo's made his picks. Interesting. But that wraps up yet another week. Again, we have a couple of games still going. Oh, don't forget Philadelphia next Sunday. I don't know if I agree with that one, but anyways. But what do I know? Yeah, we have 2 more Arena Lacrosse games today if you're in the Ontario area. Up at the ILA over in Hagersville, if you can make it. Both of them will be good games, a 1 o'clock and a 4 o'clock. And if you don't do that, of course, you've got the Georgia game going. What time is that game?
4 o'clock
4
today.
o'clock.
Yeah,
4 o'clock Eastern. Yeah,
Yeah,
Rochester and Georgia. So there's plenty of lacrosse on the mark there. So no excuse not to be sitting there holding your stick. And
and if the Swarm lose, maybe Shane Jackson's on the move.
That's another thing too. So I got a feeling by the time we roll up next Sunday night at 9 p.m. back to our regular scheduled time, we're going to have quite a bit of
trade talk.
Yeah.
That's right. ALL West is midweek next week as well. Yeah, I don't want to neglect that as well because they're coming up to the end of their season. Blackfish against the Grizzlies on Wednesday. The Sea Spray against the Eagles on Thursday. And then, of course, you've got the full slew of games from the East with the Bears Snipers Friday, Outlaws Timbermen Saturday, Express Monarchs is a game to circle for Saturday nights. That will be at the Rock facility. And Sunday, you have 2 games. The early game would be the River Wolves Bears, and the later game, the 4 o'clock game, would be Steelhawks Snipers. So plenty of lacrosse on the go. And Ryan is got his affiliation said. Riggs, this is interesting. That would be an interesting move too.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget that the PLL is playing in Japan right now. I watched highlights of one of their games where they were, doing what they want to do. But again, it's not the PLL lineup that you're going to watch in the summer because they're all playing NLL right now. So it should be interesting. Their player pool is getting a good workout. So it should be interesting to see what the teams go for and what's left over and who goes MSL and WLA because of that. Because it has repercussions all the way through. Because if they're finding players that can actually fill in right now and be ready and start practicing, it's a whole different ballgame, isn't it?
Yeah.
But for final words, Mike.
Looking forward to next week's games. Looking forward to possible trades. See who's really a buyer and who's a seller.
Right.
Because I mean, it's
gonna be a lot.
Honestly, it's tough to gauge any team. From Buffalo all the way to Vancouver.
I still think that there's an awful lot of movement ahead of us because we're talking just before we leave. If we're looking at the NLL standings, you have Buffalo in the East up at 10-2, Toronto 10-3, Rochester at 8-3. With a win today, they're right in the thick of it again. Philadelphia, Halifax. Philadelphia is 5-6, Halifax 5-7. That can easily switch back and forth next week with Philadelphia having a couple of games, or Philadelphia can take a stranglehold of the 4th position.
And they still have a game against each other later in the year, I think. So.
Yeah.
And Halifax, they have Toronto next week. I don't know if that will help or hinder their chance if they're going for a crossover into the West. And below, of course, is New York 3-9, Georgia 2-7, or depending on how today goes, and Albany at 2-9. We go over to the West, where San Diego is sitting at 8-2, but has a difficult task next week. Calgary at 8-4, Panther City at 7-5, the Rush sitting at 5-6, which makes that all that more important for Halifax, and to have a good showing and to keep going. Same thing with Philadelphia for if there's a crossover. Colorado's also at 5-6, so you get a log jam. So between the East and the West fighting for that 4th position, that could be the most interesting part of this playoff race, other than positioning for the top guys. But who gets in is all going to come across to that log jam right there. Don't forget Vegas at 4-7 because they could be part of that easily, and Vancouver at 3-9. But with the moves they've made, I I have that gut feeling that there's something. Well, that would be interesting. Charlotte Beatty's in Toronto. Who would they get rid of and where would they fit them? Toronto is pretty stacked with most everything, including their practice squad. Don't forget Corbeil's still coming back too, just to add to the mix. They're going to be in Halifax. That's a possibility.
That's possible, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They already tried once.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that one too quite a bit.
But yeah, that's again some interesting stuff, and believe me, we're going to see a whole lot more of it this coming week through next weekend. But more would be on the Monday. So remember, keep your eyes on our Facebook page at All Lacrosse All the Time, our Twitter All Lacrosse All the Time, and Instagram, as well as our YouTube page. And you can catch everything at eopsports.com/lacrosse. If you want to watch any of our shows that are highlighted or into the archives, you can go to EOP Sports YouTube page and catch any of those. You can catch any of them archived on Spotify or any of the other podcasting companies. And over the last number of weeks, you can catch them on our YouTube page at All Lacrosse All the Time as well. Again, with all the news that's going to be coming out, keep your eyes peeled onto All Lacrosse All the Time on Facebook. We will have everything up to the minute as it breaks. So just to sign off for us all, for Shawn Slaght in Moose Jaw, for Muffler Mike Kostiuk over in Connecticut, I'm Gary Groob in Toronto. And again, I want to thank you all for taking the time on a Sunday morning to join us. And again, next week, we're back to our regular scheduled time, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. We look forward to seeing you next week and every week. Until then, take care, guys.